Well, welcome everyone. My name is Faye, and right next to me is I wouldn't say old friend, but we've been friends for a very long time. Our times go back to when I used to work at Tapjoy, and he was one of my very first publishers when I was on board. So always have a soft spot in my heart for Kooapps and CK.
Same. So.
Well, with that, let's go straight into a quick introduction. Again, my name is Faye. I'm the Director of Account Management with the US Pangle team. What's Pangle? Pangle is just the is an ad network with exclusive demand from TikTok for business. And if you're a publisher, that means you can monetize your app with our in-app solution, mobile in-app advertising solutions. As an advertiser, you can leverage our extensive premium web of publishers to grow your user base and grow your revenue. And CK, you want to do a quick round?
Yeah, sure. My name is CK. I'm the co-founder, CEO of Kooapps. We make mobile games, our top title is a game called Snake.io that's doing pretty well, and then as well as Pictoword, and we have other titles like Stacky Bird and Helix and such. And we're in the hyper casual space, but I would say it's more like hybrid casual and what we call unified casual internally as well. We're about 3 million daily active users and going strong and working hard and running a lot of live events in all of our games.
Awesome. And of course, the title of this Fireside chat is Monetizing APAC Traffic as an American Publisher. So maybe you can start us off with kind of telling us what led you to go into APAC as an American gaming publisher.
Yeah, sure. So our headquarters is here, but we have a big presence in Asia. So we have 25 people here, and then 80 in the Philippines and 10 in Taiwan. I was born in Taiwan and I grew up in the Philippines all my life. And so it's always been home there. But having gone to school here and worked at Microsoft here, I think, the team and my co-founders' skill sets were much more sort of American home base. And so currently 40% of our revenue is in the US, but looking for growth outside. Asia is of course the number one spot for us because it's home where I grew up, and of course culturally, all the anime and all of the cartoons that I watch were in Asia, and so we're very, very interested in growing our presence in Asia.
And that really fits in really well with Pangle because Pangle did grow out of Asia from China initially and outwards to Eastern Asian countries. And then Southeast Asia had a banner year last year. We also launched in LATAM, a really important geo for us last year around August, late summer. And they made our Q4 really awesome. And earlier this year, I'm really excited that we launched in Canada. And we have more coming. So I'm not at liberty to discuss that in detail, but please pay attention to Pangle News. It'll be good geos that you can monetize here as an American publisher. Let's just leave it at that. So with that, so you've been a publisher both in, Western world, if you will, and in Asia. So can you tell us a little bit about like the differences that you see between users in, say, US, EU versus Asia?
Yeah, sure. Well, first off, of course, there's differences in how you want to monetize, like Faye was alluding to, and shout out to Pangle. They're definitely top of our ads waterfall stack, both on CPM and share voice and all of that. But in terms of on the user side, I think there are big differences. For example, on UI UX, people in Asia prefer to find a page that has a lot of things on there. That is, it feels like a treasure hunt. Feels like if they find like a discount or a deal, they're very, very happy. Whereas the UI UX in the Western world is kind of like Google, right? So very empty page, clean, simple to use. I'm confused. What am I supposed to do here? Whereas in Asia, I'd say the traditional Yahoo homepage with like 80 links is what people enjoy. My co-founders and I, we've discussed this, and I think our theory is that because Chinese characters have a lot of strokes, and you look for those strokes to be able to read the characters. And so there's a little bit of like a treasure hunt there. And if it's like one stroke difference, it means like a different word, different read, different sound, and all of that. Whereas in Western cultures, it's like English and such. You're reading like word for word instead of like, oh, does the A have this like a stroke that then becomes like another letter? Maybe because of that, maybe something else, but we do see a big difference in terms of UI UX that users are receptive with, and where we see drop-offs because of UI UX. Yeah.
When you say UI UX, what about style? Like I remember in one of my previous panels, we talked about Asian users. They're more receptive to more anime style versus in US is more, I don't know, like Disney cartoonish, or like what do you see as a difference in terms of stylistic?
Yeah, for sure. I would say for gaming, Asia market, definitely anime style is huge. I grew up watching anime, and so so we're actually working on our first anime ever as a company, anime game ever as a company. But for the Western market, I would say historically it's been sort of like a no-no. Art director who's been in gaming for 20 years, he said that CK, oh my God, and he loves anime, and he's like, oh, for the first time I'm going to be able to work on an anime game. Whereas he went through school, he was at Glue for a long time and all of that. The whole industry and all of his mentors and teachers told him to avoid anime because it wouldn't sell in the US. And so definitely very, very different sort of art styles. I would say gold standard in Western market is probably like sort of Toy Story. And so very, very different. But I think with how global mobile is as a market, partly because when you launch an app, it's very, very easy for you to launch it worldwide. I do think there's over the past 10 years that mix has started to occur quicker than otherwise. But I'd say gold standard sort of art versus East West is definitely very, very different. Yeah.
And one of the things that Pangle's marketing team also noticed is that although the differences between Western and Eastern users, if you will, some of the common threads that we share is that one of the fastest growing genre of games in Japan, obviously, like we know the RPGs, like they're the OG of RPG games are Japanese users, but Match 3 is a common thread between American and Japanese gamers. So that's one of the common thread is if you are developing a game for Japan, if you can mix in some of those Eastern anime style, maybe with a gacha thrown in there, and maybe put a match 3 element there, I think you may have a chance. So that's what our marketing team, have found. So try that.
Yeah. I think to add on to what Faye said, and then one thing that's very, very powerful, a theme in sort of Asian like sort of games and anime games is waifu and husbandos.
Yeah.
So the characters that you really, really want to collect, those sell really well, and partly why Genshin Impact is doing so well.
That's awesome. Well, you've been in the gaming industry for a very long time, and you found success in global markets. So can you tell us a little bit about what is your recipe success as an APAC game developer?
Yeah, definitely. And we're still learning. I'd say our first test as I think 2013 we launched a word game in Japan. So 2013 we launched Pictoword, and in the US it was really successful. I think we hit top 20 on the free charts organically, and Pictoword today is going strong as well. We won US Department of Education grant to start selling in schools and all of that. But our team had thought, okay, let's try to make an Asian version of this. So we made a Japanese version of Pictoword where we actually localized all the puzzles. And so there were interesting puzzles like, Kumo means cloud, but also spider in Japanese. And so we had, fun twists. We hired a local Japanese writer that could help us come up with interesting word puzzles as well. We ended up being like top 5 in Japan in the word category, but then realized that actually top 5 didn't have that much downloads and not that much revenue, and it was actually like top, I think, 800 or top 700 in overall games. Whereas in the US, if you're top 5 in the word category in the US, you're likely like, top 150 in overall gaming. And so that's when we realized sort of, I think, maybe word games just aren't nearly as popular in Japan as they are in the US. And so we're still learning. There's a lot of like cultural differences, of course, and market differences. But yeah, like I think for us, like we're in hyper casual space, and it's all about learning quickly, adjusting and tweaking and testing and launching. So
when I was managing word publishers, you can see for obvious reasons the geo breakdown of their DAUs, mostly in revenue, mostly in English-speaking geos, and not so much in Asia, and that makes sense, is the language. So my next question for you is like, now that you 2022, it's been a while. So what would you have done differently if you have a word of advice for all of our audience today who are going to APAC tomorrow? What's your word of advice for everyone?
Yeah, definitely. I think our biggest success has been working with local influencers. And when you work with local influencers, and we find them actually on TikTok. So our number one platform, I'd say 2016 to 2020 was probably Instagram. Was our biggest influencer network, where we'd work with people and they would post about our content and post their followers and talk about it and all of that. But I'd say, I would say in the past year or two, it's definitely been TikTok has been our winner of our influencer marketing budget. And when we work with influencers, we're able to learn about the local culture, and they'll tell us, what their audience likes and why, and we learn a lot from that. So I would say that's like our biggest advice, is to work with local people. And creativity really is huge with the influencers that you work with. We currently work with maybe like 20 to 30 every month, and so so like it's a little bit hectic because the process is not very streamlined and all of that. But TikTok actually has a Spark ads and creator marketplace to streamline this, and so that's been super. And so biggest advice is to work with local influencers, understand their culture, learn from them, listen to them, and our best content have been where influencers actually cosplay as well. So we had a in-game ninja snake event where if you win, you would win the ninja snake, and actually our influencer dressed up as with ninja costume and ran and created the video with us and all of that. So that's been absolutely phenomenal for us. Yeah.
What about ad formats? Do you see any difference between user engagement with regards to certain ad formats that's different in, say, US versus Asian countries?
Yeah, definitely. I've seen like a lot more variety in ad formats in Asian countries, and then so examples like lock screen ads. I've seen, whereas in the U.S. that's maybe almost like a taboo for now. Like if you were to see like a lock screen ad, you'd probably get kind of annoyed. And so I think in Asia they're a lot more receptive to different ad formats that you can try. We're still looking into it, be it lock screen ads or in-game ads and all of that. We're still looking into it. A lot of the reasons is performance reasons. So let's say with a lock screen ad, not sure if if it's app launch, then is there enough time to check the waterfall, load the video, or load the image, and all of that. So there's a lot of complexities with different ad formats and standardizations and sizes and all of that. But you see that a lot more in Asia versus the US, and I'm sure over time people here will start testing them out and and maybe become very popular.
Awesome. And what about seasonalities? You mentioned that you localize your games for different markets. What about seasonality? Do you run different events for different, Chinese New Year versus, New Year in Japan or whatnot?
Yeah. We definitely run Chinese New Year. It's big enough for our user base that we do run it globally. I would say there is a lot of seasonality. I would say the starkest difference in seasonality is last year in September. I think the Chinese government released a new law about limiting how many hours a week teenagers and kids and could play games. Like, I don't know if people heard, but they released something like this. And initially we're like, oh, okay, that's like odd. And, but actually we saw on literally right after September 1st, like DAUs went down, like I would say like 60, 70% overnight when that was implemented. And then in Christmas holiday season, like you would see a spike, and then of course Chinese New Year we saw a huge spike, and so I would say there's a lot of seasonality difference. Of course it'll depend on your app and your user base and all of that, but I would say one that is probably most vivid in my memory is for China. During the school year, you'll see way less DAU. And then their session time and all of that it's like a very stark difference. It's like 3 to 1 weekend versus weekday, and then sort of holiday sort of 2 weeks, like it's sort of spiking weekend traffic, and then after that tanks down. So for example on UA, I would say like on Saturday and Sunday, right before the end of the holiday period, you want to stop your UA because they're not going to come back Monday. And so you want to watch out for things like that. So I'd say seasonality, probably China is the biggest sort of up and down. Yeah.
And what part of APAC do you see the most amount of growth? I mean, obviously Japan is a very mature market, and some of the Korea and Taiwan as well. But like, do you see any other emerging markets that has been experiencing a lot of growth that maybe took you a little bit by surprise?
Yeah, definitely. I would say revenue-wise, for sure, still Korea, Japan, Taiwan. These three are top 15 revenue countries. And then in terms of downloads, Southeast Asia is huge. Indonesia, Malaysia. Maybe this will be the last question. Oh, okay. Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines are huge DAU countries for us. I believe top 15, if not top 15, top 20. And then sort of going more broad worldwide, I'd say, Middle East, Brazil, those are really successful for us. Actually, for Snake, our number 2 largest revenue country is actually Saudi Arabia, so Middle East. So number 1 is US, number 2 is Middle East, larger than, UK, CAAU for us. And so, I think LATAM, a lot of people talk about, but I think sort of at the Arabic countries have been really successful for us that not a lot of people talk about. Localization is a little bit hard because like the screen, like it's like different direction in how and the text is very long. So watch out for that. But it's a very good geo that we like a lot. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for answering my rapid fire questions. To try to squeeze it all in within 20 minutes. And thank you so much for your attending our panel. And if there's any questions, let us know. We'll be right here. Thank you so much. And thank you, CK.
Thank you, Faye.